Hey guys, welcome back. Here we are in video number 6 of Chapter 9, World War I. We're going to begin Section 3, A Bloody Conflict today. So, as I was thinking about this video, and I realized Section 3 really is going to start to get into a little bit of the fighting, and with the fighting comes a lot of technology. So I was thinking about some technology of today, and cell phones, and TVs, 4K, and having Netflix and stuff like that built in. But, I was thinking about some older technologies, and I was thinking about, what about shovels? What a groundbreaking invention that was. So, there you go. Didn't even know I was coming in here with the joke, but there I was. So anyways, we're going to start here with trench warfare, and I do not want you guys to write this down. You can if you want to, but I just want you to kind of realize again how this war was going to be fought. And last year I know you talked about it in World History, trench warfare, and we're going to play a game here in class dealing with trench warfare. But trenches, as we know, soldiers are going to be forced to dig in over here. They're going to dig it about 6 to 7 feet. They want to make sure that their heads aren't visible. They have to pop their heads up because they don't really want to be seen at all times. There's snipers on both sides making sure that there aren't troops popping their heads up. But trench warfare is going to be a very, very slow war. And America is going to get involved pretty soon. We know that America just declared war in April of 1917, but it's not going to be until June of 1917 that American troops are actually going to be involved in the conflict. But trench warfare, this is going to be the major method that the way war was going to be fought, and again, it is very, very slow moving. But again, like I said, technology. This is another war, and really all wars are going to be like this, where they want to have the most technology. They want to have the best technology out of every country because it's going to help them on the home front. It's going to help them in fighting. And really, during this war, we start to see a lot of new technologies that are going to, in a way, revolutionize the way that war is going to be fought. First of all, we have poisonous gas that's first going to be used by the Germans. So they use that. Naturally, both sides are then going to develop a gas mask. So there we have two newer technologies. Airplanes are going to be used for the first time during the war. And these were mostly going to be used to scout the enemy, but quickly realize that, hey, we can attach a gun to this. We can turn this into a weapon. So airplanes are going to be used for the first time during this war, but probably not a job you want. Trench warfare, it's very dangerous, especially when you have to go in the middle. I mean, think about both sides here. You have two trenches. In this middle here is going to be no man's land, having to cross out with the other side using machine guns and then firing at you. But airplanes, they are very cheaply made. They are made with cloth. Therefore, they are easy to shoot down. The average lifespan of a pilot, only 2 weeks. So definitely not a job that you want, but these are going to start to revolutionize the way that war is going to be fought. I mean, think about today. Airplanes using missiles, ballistics, those types of things, that is the way that war is fought. Back then is going to kind of be the early entrant into it, and then also using tanks as well. And then here's just going to kind of show you some examples of what this newer technology is going to look like. Here we have the machine guns, the gas masks, the airplane, artillery. I'll move my camera here. You can kind of see the early tanks. So now on to what you have to start writing down with winning the war at sea. So as we know, the Germans, they are practicing unrestricted warfare. They are sinking merchant ships. They claim that their U-boats or their submarines or underwater boats, whatever you want to call it, all those terms are kind of used interchangeably, are going to be the best in the world, and they are going to start to target American ships even more now. Now, American troops or American generals, they realize that the war needs to be won at sea. And they are going to go through this entire conflict once we declare war, which is, again, is going to be shortly over a year. They're going to make sure that no American warship is sunk due to German U-boats. And we do this a little bit differently than the British. The British, they are just going to send out destroyers that are going to kind of patrol their coast and look for U-boats. Now, in theory, that looks good because here you have all these different warships, like these ones here, that are going out for the sole purpose of trying to sink a U-boat. However, they are by themselves. They are sitting targets. America, under the proposition of William Sims, he proposes using a convoy. So that is using all these ships here. So these are American destroyers. They are basically sent to make sure troops are getting overseas and to make sure that American merchant ships get to their borders, get to Great Britain or France, wherever they're heading, unharmed. Now, the benefits of this. No U-boat in their right mind is going to attack knowing that there are all these destroyers in this vicinity. And say if something does happen to one of these ships. You have 5 ships here, one of them starts to sink, these 4 are going to be the first ones there helping out and making sure that they're going to be safe. So winning the war at sea is going to be absolutely essential. Now, before we start talking a little bit more about the United States' involvement in the war, and really it's going to be pretty quick because, being such a slow-moving war, it's not like we're going from battle to battle to battle, much like the Revolutionary War or island hopping of World War II. But the German offensive is going to start to falter. Now, first thing on this slide to talk about is going to be the Russians. And again, I know you talked about this in world history, but the Russian Revolution could have absolutely killed the Allied cause. Because in March of 1917, the Russians, they leave the war. And they leave the war because they just had their own civil war. We know that the Bolsheviks win. Vladimir Lenin takes over. Now he has his own communist party. And he signs a treaty with the Germans. So the Russians, they give up a lot of land. They give up a lot of territory. But more importantly, what they do, they stop the Germans from fighting on two separate fronts. I mean, thinking about, your mental map right now. And here you have Europe over here on this side. And all of a sudden you have the Russians who are going to be up here. The Germans, they're fighting on both sides. Once you have Vladimir Lenin in his first act of taking over and seizing power, saying, Russia, we're no longer involved in the war, the German troops, they take everyone and completely focus on that Western front. So it could have been vital, but because America got involved in April of 1917, almost a month after the Russians leave the war, the Germans are almost out of time. Now, the American soldiers are nicknamed their doughboys. And not because a lot of Americans are obese, but because they are fresh. They are these new troops who are ready to come in and fight in the trenches, and they're willing to go out and fight for freedom. All right, now the British and the French, they just want America to kind of join their infantry. They don't want the Americans to have their own trench. They just kind of want to put them intermittently with the rest of the soldiers from France and Great Britain. Now, America, they want no part of this. Only one infantry division is going to do that, and that's the 93rd Infantry Division, and that was mostly due to segregation. So They are able to start their own fight. They're able to have their own trenches. And in March of 1918, the Germans, they launched their massive attack along the Western Front. So now their goal, they are trying to get to Paris. They think if they can get to Paris, the French, they're going to surrender, that the war is going to be over. So they launched this massive attack. However, the Americans, we're now involved. We're now fighting. So the U.S. launches their major attack, blocking the Germans. They are very, very close from Paris, but not able to get there. If they would have gotten there, the French, they probably would have surrendered. The French probably would have been out of the war at this point. It would have been a definite game changer. But because that falters, the Ottoman Turks and the Austro-Hungarian Empire, they surrender. So they are now basically out of the war. So we have the Allies versus the Central Powers. Really, all that's left of the Central Power are the Germans. And with the surrender of their allies, the German Navy, they have a mutiny. And what a mutiny is, they are going to overthrow their leader, they're going to overthrow their captain of the ship, and they are not going to fight anymore. And once this naval mutiny happens, the German emperor, he is forced to step down. 2 days after, they are now having a republic form of government. And at the 11th hour, on the 11th day, on the 11th month, Germany surrenders, officially ending the war.